This is Pet Life Radio. Let's talk pets.
Welcome to Animal Rights on Pet Life Radio. This is your host, Tim Link, and I'm so glad you're joining us today. Super excited to have an old pal come back on the show. She's got a wonderful new book called What the Chicken Knows, a new appreciation of the world's most familiar bird. So I'm going to be excited to talk about that. Of course, we're talking about the New York Times bestselling author, Sy Montgomery. And, of course, you know her from all of her outstanding books, The Soul of an Octopus, and many, many more. So we're going to talk to Sy a little bit about the book and what we know and don't know about chickens. And then we'll talk a little bit about writing in general and how she creates her craft and puts together such a fun and interesting book each and every time. So everybody hang tight. We'll come back right after this commercial break. You're listening to Animal Rights on Pet Life Radio. Hi, this is Tim Link, animal communicator and pet expert and host of Animal Rights on Pet Life Radio. Have you ever wanted to know what your pet is really thinking? Do you want to find out if they truly understand what you're trying to tell them? Or wish you could build a better understanding and closer relationship with your pet? Well, now you can. Learning to Communicate with Animals is a 4-part on-demand workshop. In the workshop, you'll learn the essential techniques that are necessary to communicate with animals, including what is animal communication, breathing correctly to achieve the perfect state to communicate with your animals at a deeper level, using guided meditation exercises, a method to communicate with animals, and how to send and receive information from your animals. So if you're wanting to learn how to communicate and connect with your animals at a deeper level, visit petliferadio.com/workshop and purchase and download Learning to Communicate with Animals. You'll be glad you did.
Let's Talk Pets on PetLifeRadio.com.
Welcome back to Animal Rights on Pet Life Radio. Joining us now is New York Times bestselling author. You know her from The Soul of an Octopus, and you'll soon to know her from her latest book, What the Chicken Knows, a new appreciation of the world's most familiar bird. Of course, we're talking to Sy Montgomery. Sy, welcome back to the show.
Oh, I'm so glad to be with you again.
We're thrilled to have you back on. I always love it, when I get contact, say, hey, Sy's got a new book coming out, because it's always, to me, it's very interesting, it's very intriguing, but it's also very quirky, because, you investigate, what the octopus knows. And so we're not talking about just dogs and cats. And in this case, we're talking about a chicken, or the chickens, or all chickens, or the superior bird of all time, the chicken. So tell us a little bit about the book, What the Chicken Knows.
Well, everyone, even if you can't identify a robin or tell a robin from a crow, everyone knows what a chicken is. But strangely, almost everything we know about chickens is wrong. If you ask most people who don't have chickens, what do you know about chickens? They'll often say, oh, they're really stupid birds. Or they'll say, ooh, they're dirty. Or they'll say they're nasty tempered. And this is absolutely false. And I think it might come from folks who met chickens in a bad way. I mean, most of us have, I don't, but many of us, our most intimate relationship with chickens occurs when they're lying dead and cooked on your plate. And this is not the best way to get to know anybody. So I got to know chickens who were allowed to roam completely freely all over our 8 acres. They eventually annexed our neighbor's yard as well, did not cross the street. And I got to watch them interact with another flock of chickens. I got to be able to understand a little bit of what they were saying. I got to see how important their social life was. And how intelligent they really are. They're not just these feathered automatons that walk around saying, buck, 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 ah.
A master writer and a voiceover artist. So I think he got so much fast. And, the interesting thing you say about that, because I think you're absolutely right. When we often think about chickens, we think about, if those who eat meat, how they're consumed, or we see them just walking around aimlessly. I know my grandparents had chickens all over their farm, and it was for food, purposes, but you just see them rambling around everywhere. But then I got to know a little bit more about them myself. And actually, one of our neighbors, until the homeowner association found out about it, we don't have 8 wonderful acres around in our establishment, but our neighbors had one. It was very decorative, and it was a pet, and it was one that she kept indoors for the most part. So I think that the enamored part of it is people look at the basic chicken that we see, the white feathered chicken often, or the brown feathered chicken, but actually the chicken has a long history and a very colorful history as well.
Now, they've been domesticated for a very long time, and they come from, as I'm sure you know, they come from the Asian jungle fowl. And I have met wild Asian jungle fowl in Asia, of all places, and they look exactly like the chicken on the Kellogg's cornflakes box. I mean, they just look like they jumped right off that box. Um, but people have bred chickens to look every which way. The only animal I can think of that might be more plastic in its many breeds might be pigeons or dogs. So there are chickens with poofy top knots. There are chickens with they have fancy feather feet. They look like they're walking around in their dad's bedroom slippers or something. There's chickens with such long tails that they can be sitting high on their perch and their tail feathers will be dragging on the ground. There's little bitty chickens and great big chickens, and there's chickens with like curly feathers and sleek feathers and feathers that are outlined in dark. They are called millefleurs. They're gorgeous, gorgeous birds. But besides what they look like, and besides the delicious eggs that they give us, and besides the fact that many people eat chickens, they are such fascinating animals to get to know. Once you get yourself in that beginner's mind, don't project onto the chicken what you want to see and let the chicken show you who they really are. And you will come away with such respect for these animals, with admiration, with actual awe. And I have been learning about chickens. Well, I had a flock for 20 years. The flock, changed members, but the flock itself was a cultural institution for 20 years. And since then, even after living with chickens and observing them very closely for 20 years, I just learned gobsmackingly new things about roosters a couple of years ago when my neighbor, catty-cornered across the street, showed me what to do with a rowdy rooster. Believe it or not, on my street is a rooster rescue. And I never heard them crow, by the way, but they do crow. And so I'm learning new stuff every single day about these animals, even after having lived with them and observed them closely for 20 years.
That is fascinating. Now, see, I'm a big fan, as you know, of rescues of all sorts. I used to be a president of a humane society, and I've worked with sanctuaries and zoos and you name it. I don't know. I had to reflect back. I've worked with roosters before, but I don't know if I ever heard about rooster rescue.
Yeah, she didn't start out to do this, but people don't know what to do with roosters. I mean, often they don't know that their little chick has a 50% chance of turning out to be male. And when he begins to crow, they may be like, right, well, what am I going to do? And the other thing that sometimes happens with roosters is they'll be sweet and they'll be your friend and they'll be super smart. And then one day they will turn. And this happened to us. My husband was fixing the lawnmower one more time, and you're lying on the ground when you're fixing the lawnmower. And underneath the lawnmower, he saw these big scaly feet hurrying towards him, towards his face in a menacing way. And he leapt to his feet just in time to avoid the spurs. So, what do you do now? Well, I did not know at the time. My husband didn't know at the time, but I know now what you do. And thanks to Ashley Nagley, I know that you do the absolute opposite of what anyone would normally think they ought to do. You do not run away. You do not just block the chicken. You certainly don't kick the chicken or hurt the chicken. What do you do when a rooster attacks you? You pick him up and cuddle him and carry him around. And that sounds insane, but it really works. And I have met her rooster. She's not accepting new roosters anymore because she was just getting inundated with roosters. But her roosters are the sweetest, nicest gentlemen that you could ever meet. They do not attack her. They do not attack her two children. They do not attack her husband. They are wonderful companions and super curious and packed with personality. One of them loves to watch her husband work on the car, as if he's watching so carefully he's going to go off after this and work on his car. Another one loves to go in the house and loves to drink out of one particular mug. And another one thoughtfully brings her gifts. I mean, sometimes it'll be like a gasket or a nail, but still, how kind. And he carefully brings it and presents it to her in a really generous way. So roosters can be fabulous if you know how to handle them.
And by picking up the book, What the Chicken Knows, you'll know how to do that, right?
Yes, you will.
So it has to, obviously, your fans are listening to this show. I know that for sure. And they know sort of, can't wait to see what the next topic is. But I have to sit back here as a novice. It's like I'm seeing on the shelf, What the Chicken Knows. And somebody wrote a book about chickens and roosters. I have to ask, what compelled you of all things? Now, I know you, obviously, we talked about, the octopus, the hummingbird. We had a book on the hawk, which I loved. Now, all of a sudden, we're talking about chickens. How did that come about? Was it just a matter of you were observing your own environment and your own chickens, or was there epiphany, a dream state that said, I've got to write a book about chickens and roosters and such?
Well, part of the impetus to write this was everyone got chickens during the pandemic, but a lot of people just dumped their chickens in the woods when they went back to work. And so to those who got chickens and fell in love with chickens, this book is a love story for you, and you'll totally connect with that. But for those who don't realize that chickens are super intelligent, super social, they're emotional creatures. They have memories. They anticipate the future. For folks who don't know that, this book is meant to allow you to be in awe of the most common and unappreciated bird on the planet.
Very good. I love that. I love that. Well, I've had clients, like I mentioned before, over the years, contact me about their own pet chickens and pet roosters. And when I get contacted, it's either a behavioral issue with them or one that's missing, one that's lost or even been stolen.
Oh.
And so I get contacted. And I, even to this day, I've been doing this type of work for 20 years. And I step back, someone sends me a note saying, my chicken's missing. And you think, okay, I need to invest.
Find it.
Yeah, because I can't find my chicken. I'm like, okay, is this real or not? Because I think you're right. We think a lot about, most of us that love animals. We think about the animals in our life and, domesticated, say dogs and cats, maybe horses, things of this sort. But, that's changed over the years. Now a domesticated animal, especially with our younger Gen Zs, we'll say, bearded dragons and spiders and snakes and all these things are domesticated animals, these type of things. And then, of course, then you're talking about when you're dealing with wildlife sanctuaries, so on and so forth. But I don't think people have recognized that necessarily all the things you mentioned on the show here, as well as in the book, that, chickens are far more than just for consumption or laying eggs. Yes, they can do that, but there's a long history and the intelligence and all the beauty in a lot of them as well.
Yeah, for a chicken, the thing that strikes me so much and I find tremendously moving is that to a chicken, their social relationships are absolutely central to their lives. And this is something that we value as humans in ourselves. The average chicken can recognize at least 100 different faces, and they know who we are as well. So they're not just mindlessly walking around saying the same thing. I'm a chicken, you're a chicken. I'm a chicken, you're a chicken. They communicate in, pretty sophisticated ways with each other. And essentially, relationships are everything to them.
I love that. I love the parallel behind that. And yeah, I could probably pick out 100 familiar faces. Now, I don't know if I know their names. That's the thing. I probably know their dogs and cats names, but I'm not sure about the people.
Chickens actually, at least one that I know of, made up a name for her person. And this was by my friend Melissa, who wrote a wonderful book, How to Speak Chicken. And I met her in Washington when one of her books and one of mine were getting an award from AAAS. And she was telling me that there is this sound. It's a series of, it kind of goes, bah, 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 bah. Sounds almost like a trumpet announcing the queen. And her chicken Tilly was the only one in the flock that said this, but only said this when she was there. And we figured out that Tilly had made up a name for Melissa. And Tilly is gone now. But the other chickens now use that. Bah, 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 bah. They use that for Melissa's names. And as you know, there's a number of animals that we know use names for their fellows, which include some species of birds and, of course, dolphins with their signature whistles.
Very nice. I love that. I love that. Oh, that's perfect. Well, listen, we're going to take a quick commercial break. Then we'll come back and talk more to New York Times bestselling author Sy Montgomery. Talk to her about the book, What the Chicken Knows, a new appreciation of the world's most familiar bird. And also chat with Sy to pick her brain a little bit about writing in general. So everybody hang tight. We'll come back right after this commercial break. You're listening to Animal Rights on Pet Life Radio.
Gifts for my pets, sparkle and love, under the tree, from heaven above. Gifts for my pets, joy in the air, unwrapping dreams, without a care.
Elevate your cat's eating experience with the Cat Tree Tray. The Cat Tree Tray keeps your cat's food off the floor and is conveniently located on the cat tree. Go to cattreetray.com. Bring home a luxury French Bulldog from the world-famous Tom King's Kennel. Premium French Bulldogs from excellent European bloodlines. Superior puppy care and lifetime health guarantee for your perfect companion. Use code TomKingsMagic for a magical holiday discount. Visit TomKingsKennel.com and find your perfect Frenchie today. Your pets will be over the moon with sparkly jewelry from Over the Moon Jewelry. Beautiful handcrafted matching jewelry for you and your pet. Wire-wrapped, beaded contemporary necklaces, bracelets, and charms. Go to overthemoonjewelry.com.
Gifts for my pets, joy in the air, unwrapping dreams, without a care.
Let's talk pets
Let's talk pets
on Pet Life Radio.
Pet Life Radio.
PetLifeRadio.com.
Welcome back to Animal Rights on Pet Life Radio. In your conversation with the New York Times bestselling author Sy Montgomery. Now, Sy, when putting together the book and learning more about chickens than anybody outside of Colonel Sanders probably knows. Oh, that was terrible. We'll edit that one out. Don't worry about it. But learning more and learning the fascination behind them, what's your goal in writing this particular book? When people pick it up and read What the Chicken Knows, what do you hope they gain from that?
Well, I think all of my books are really love stories, and they're accounts of gratitude and awe. And the chicken was the perfect subject because here is this very, very common animal. There are 4 chickens for every human on Earth. So, there's a lot of them around. And this animal offers us an opportunity for connection, for admiration, for astonishment. But it's the commonest bird there is. So what a great thing. That was my goal as, my pan of praise to my friends who were chickens.
There you go. I love that. I love that. And it is, we love all the animals around us, for us animal lovers. Some we dive deeper into, whether they're animals in our lives or just we have a fascination or a general connection with the animals. I know your great book about hawks, that's connection. That's a spirit guide for me. And, I'm always fascinated by the various types of hawks around. But I will say, I worked with chickens, as I mentioned. I know I've been around them, but to actually take time to learn the nuances of them and the uniqueness of the different characteristics they have is something I probably hadn't done. So with your book, What the Chicken Knows, definitely learn a little bit more about them.
Oh, I'm thrilled to hear that. I mean,
Yeah.
when you think of it, when you talk about a coward, you say they're chicken. When you talk about someone stupid, you say they're a bird brain. And all of these things are false. I can tell you amazing stories of roosters who chased off a fox. I can tell you of mother hens that risked everything for their youngsters. They're not fraidy cats. They're extremely brave, but you got to remember, because they're birds, they're made of air, which should increase our admiration for their courage when they do show it. But they're also not idiots, because, if a big predator's coming after you, very often the smartest thing you can do is retreat and hide. And deciding on a good place to hide requires, one, it requires memory of the last time this happened and anticipation of what's going to happen next. So, they learn and they act on what they have learned. They're super smart birds, actually. We just don't
Nice.
see it.
No, we don't. But we do hear it. I will say this: if you live in a neighborhood, or even if you live more in the rural areas, and you're the only one that has a street light near your house, turn that sucker off, or have the city turn it off. Reason I say that is, both when I was growing up, we had the only street lamp on our street. And during a visit to Key West, we had the only street lamp behind the room that we were staying in Key West. And on both occasions, that's where the rooster roosted.
Oh my gosh.
As soon as the
Okay.
street light came on, yeah, it was a serenade. And at first it's kind of cute, and after about 3 a.m, you decide, no, that's not so cute
Oh
anymore.
gosh. Wow. Well, that's real good advice, Tim, too, for all wildlife, because artificial lighting is a big problem for migrating birds. It's a death trap for all kinds of night flying insects, many of whom are pollinators. It's bad for bats in many ways, because they'll be attracted to the insects and smack into, some car that's going by.
Yeah.
So it's a good idea to keep our night skies clear so we can see the stars.
I like it. It's a good point. And we know that with my work with, I've worked with sea turtles and stuff. So we know about keeping the lights off, especially during the hatchling times. So they know to follow
Absolutely.
the moon to the sea instead of back to your house. So good news about that. So let's pick your brain a little bit about writing. You know a little bit about that. Best-selling author, you're a screenwriter, you've written many acclaimed books. I see 31 nonfiction acclaimed books for
It's
adults and
38
children.
now.
38.
It's
My,
38, and for some, well, Wikipedia and stuff just doesn't catch up fast enough. I'm
you're
writing faster than they can even catalog.
right, and left and right going out the door. So let's talk a little bit about that. First of all, how do you keep the momentum going? Is it your fascination about things going on, the demand? I mean, we're talking about, obviously, you've been a writer for your short, young lifetime.
My 66-year-old lifetime. I've been writing professionally. Well, I wrote for money in college. I had a full-time job in college. In fact, that's how I met my husband, Howard Mansfield, who is also a full-time author. So in our house, you have two full-time authors working with no net. We don't, we aren't employed by anyone. We have no regular income. We just write, and we love the writing life.
Because the writing life can be challenging. I'm sure it's changed a lot. And I'm not talking about going from typewriters to computers. I'm talking about money and shifts and conglomerates buying, magazines and publishing houses consolidating. There's a lot of shifting and changing going on in this industry. How do you, as someone just getting into this or starting to write, what advice do you have for them to A, make a living at this, and B, navigating all these constant changes in the publishing industry and the entertainment industry as a whole?
Yeah, it's hard. My one of my majors in college, as was Howard's, was magazine journalism, and magazines have all but disappeared. But the first thing I would say is, if you love writing, learn to revel in that love and not the love of a bunch of stuff, because you can live on the scent of an oily rag if you are doing something that you love. And for many years, we did live on the scent of an oily rag, but look what we got to do. I mean, I've traveled all over the world. I've gone to so many places and seen so many amazing creatures that the wealthiest person in the world could not have bought my experience. And I was able to do it because I'm a writer and because I was going to bring the story of that place and that landscape and those animals and those people back to a readership in the United States and beyond. So writing can give you everything. So clear the decks, and it is hard to make money writing. Make everything you write work for you. When you write an article for a newspaper or you write an article for an online thing, there's always sections that you cut out. Can that be another article that doesn't cost you any more to research, but that you could sell somewhere else? Did you take pictures that you could sell somewhere with the fascinating caption that you're going to write? Can you do an audio thing? Can you do, I mean, there's just all of these different ways to connect with readers now that didn't exist before. And that's a plus. But I'm not going to kid people. It's difficult starting out right now. And it's very different from what my husband and I did in 1979 when we graduated from Syracuse University, although he had a book contract right out of school. I worked for a newspaper for 5 years, which was fabulous experience. Gave me deadline experience. There were 5 deadlines a day. It gave me the experience of having many different people edit me, which is really good. And I think best of all, 60,000 people were reading my words, and I heard from those readers. So that was fabulous. So newspapers are a really good thing, even though they're shrinking. Newspapers are accepting more stuff from freelance writers as their staffs shrink. So that's a place to start getting your writing out there. And I know people all think that they should do a blog, and I have never had a blog, so I can't really tell you about it. Except with a blog, you don't necessarily get any editing, and editing is so helpful. So I'd say try to get your writing into the hands of an editor who will edit you and who will connect you with a readership beyond your Facebook friends.
There you go. That makes sense. It's a whole different gambit. And you get a different skill set there. And it's hard. You're right. It's hard to find good editors or editors at all.
Right.
Even when you land a publishing deal, if you can get an editor who's willing to spend time with your manuscript and give you insight to what you're writing is hard to come by nowadays. I found one of the most fascinating. I've been part of a couple of clubs, organizations, whether I'm here in the Georgia area, so part of the Georgia Writers Association, Atlanta Writers Club, etc. And they're chock full of people that are not only up and coming writers or authors or have published books before, but they have guests coming in. They have side groups that are set aside to help edit the books and to give you insight and tidbits. So, you don't have to spend a fortune, and it's a great place to get in contact with people and learn the craft. And even if you've been doing it for a while, to pick the brains of others to find another new idea.
That's terrific. I bet they love it when you show up.
I don't know. I think they put the no sell sign on the door or something. We're out for lunch or something when I show up. But it's true. I can remember having talks over the years, and people say, "Well, how do you get into the whole writing game, publishing? What do you?" And one of the first questions I ask them is, "What do you want to be? If you want to be an author, what do you want to be?" And they're all like, "Well, I want to be a best-selling author and make tons of money." I'm like, well, yeah, so do 99% of the other people, because only 1% actually get to that realm. But there are plenty of opportunities to write in. I think, and with the downsizing and the consolidation of the industry and making it tougher in a lot of the cases, there's also more opportunities. There's more, like you said, more avenues to get your message out there than there ever was before. So I think that's the key. I think you hit it spot on. You write and you write and you write, and you find ways to rewrite what you've written and get the message out in a different format or for a different area. And even the money's a nickel here, a nickel there, it's more nickels than you had before you started.
That's right. And you can live well very cheaply, as we have learned. We, between us, Howard and I have more than 50 books that we've published. But for many years, we were not exactly rolling in the money, but we were always happy. So if you want to be a best-selling author and make a whole lot of money, I say pare that down. If you want to be an author, don't count on it being a bestseller right away, and don't count on making a lot of money.
You hit it spot on. I mean, even if you talk to some of the biggest names out there, oftentimes you'll hear them called as an overnight sensation. It's like, yeah, an overnight sensation that took 20 years.
Right, exactly. That's totally true. And you know what? One time I went out to dinner with Peter Matheson, who wrote The Snow Leopard, and who was a National Book Award winner. And, he was like a god up there, He was paying for the dinner because I had no money. He ordered a lot of stuff. I mean, I think he had like a soup, and then he had food, and then he had liquor. And I had this little tiny thing. Well, his credit card was declined. And I thought, oh my gosh, this is my hero. He's been writing, he's the pinnacle of success. And they're sending back his credit card. And I had to pay for it. And we didn't have the money. Oh my gosh. He made it good though. He went back to New England Aquarium, which was where the two of us were both speaking on a panel, and got them to cover it.
There you go. There you go. Hint number one, if you're going to be speaking somewhere, get them to cover everything as much as you can. Well, Sy, where can people pick up a copy of the book, What the Chicken Knows, and keep track of all the wonderful activities you got going on?
Well, the book should be around stores and stuff, and online as well. Although, of course, it's always great to go into your neighborhood independent bookstore and to keep track of where I am, and if I'm speaking in your town. My webpage is symontgomery.com. My appearances are all on symontgomery.com/appearances. And there's a news section, symontgomery.com/news, which will keep you up to date on all the different great critters that I get to meet.
Love it. Love it. Well, we'll get that message out, and everybody go pick up a copy of the book and learn about chickens, but also learn about great writing. It's What the Chicken Knows, a new appreciation of the world's most familiar bird by best-selling author, New York Times best-selling author, Sy Montgomery. Sy, thanks for coming back on the show. Congratulations on another successful book. And we'll look forward to having you come back on the show for the next book and the next critter you take on board. We'll see what that's going to be about.
Awesome, Tim. I can't wait to talk to you again.
Thank you. All right, well, we're coming to the end of the show today. I want to thank everyone for listening to Animal Rights on Pet Life Radio. I want to thank the producers and sponsors for making this show possible. If you have any questions, ideas, comments for the show, you can get a hold of us at petliferadio.com, and we'll be glad to answer your questions, entertain your comments, and bring on the people you want to hear from most. And while you're there, check out all the other wonderful shows and hosts. It's a cornucopia of fun, clucking, swimming, barking fun, petliferadio.com. So until next time, write a great story about the animals in your life, and who knows, you may be the next guest on Animal Rights on Pet Life Radio. Have a great day.
Let's Talk Pets, every week on demand, only on PetLifeRadio.com.